For the record,
Yeah.
I told my husband, one of my main goals in doing this is that I can get out of a business where I have to be in front of an audience and I can
Yeah.
just hide away where nobody knows who I am. And I closed 2 deals and now I have to do an interview and you're going to put me on YouTube. So thanks.
Exactly. So, hey everyone, welcome to today's interview. A special guest we have here. You guys know I like to do interviews with, real people who are actually doing the business, not someone who's on stage speaking around the country and all that kind of stuff. I know there's plenty of interviews out there like that, but I like to work with, everyday people that are doing the business and are doing life-changing things. And I've known Sarah for a number of years, and it's just been recently that we've been working more closely together. And her success that she's recently been having, I know, can be a big impact for many other people in our audience, but also especially women in our audience who I've recently just had, whether it was emails or messages of people saying, hey, Nathan, I'm really struggling with, uncertainty or how, just even how to get started making my first offers. So without further ado, Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. I hope I can help some folks.
Absolutely. I'd love for you to start off by just sharing a little bit about your background. Tell us, how you got started in real estate and a little bit. I know you have another business, but tell us about that as well.
Okay. Well, let's see. I started, I guess, dabbling in real estate a number of years ago, really. It was very on and off because I do have another business and I've got kids. So we have family and kids and another business, but I knew that I wanted to get into real estate. Really, that started even long before years ago when I kind of got interested in entrepreneurship in general, and I read some books on real estate and your Rich Dad Poor Dad, that, like, all the stuff. And I was reading that kind of stuff in college, and I do not come from a business background in my family or entrepreneurial anything like that in my family or close friends, so that was definitely all outside of what was the norm from my experience. But I read books about how real estate. One thing that stuck in my mind was reading that one thing that all wealthy people in the world had in common was real estate, whether they made their money in real estate or they hold their money in real estate, but they all had real estate. And I found property more interesting than stuff like stocks or other, just more interesting to me. So I thought that was cool. So kind of in the back of my mind, I always had this idea that I wanted to get into real estate, but my educational background, I was naturally much more interested in the arts, which is, highly lucrative. Starving artist would be the way to describe my upbringing. And my husband and I both studied liberal arts in college. I joke that we are overeducated liberal arts majors with no real marketable skills. And I do love that stuff still. So that's what I was interested in back in school. I was studying art and theater, and on the side reading books on entrepreneurship, which was very weird for the starving artist crowd that I was in, that I was reading books by, business books and stuff like that. I got out of college and I started, over time, I have this, what I do from my full-time job is that I am an entertainer, and I do performances of magic, storytelling, face painting, that kind of stuff. And so I started doing that part-time in college, and then I got a sales job specifically to learn business skills because I had none of that, and I read it in a Robert Kiyosaki book that you should learn how to sell. So I got a sales job, and eventually was able to work full-time to turn my little part-time artsy hobby into a full-time business. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. But really when I was started I guess about a year or so into that business, I realized I was able to create a full-time business on my own.
Right.
And then I said,
a successful one at that, because most businesses fail after the first, within 3 years, most of the time.
Right. So to create a business, especially something in the, arts field or whatever that could support a family, was a real accomplishment. And I thought if I took that time that I look back at the learning curve that I went through with that business and said, if I put that into real estate, knowing what people could make in real estate, I should be able to do really well. So that was, I guess, 8 years ago that I first went to like a RIA meeting. But the thing I didn't count on was that I also started having children at the same time.
Right. which is like a whole nother business, by the way. That's like a whole that's like a whole new business model right there.
Yeah, easily as mentally and emotionally time consuming and shocking as starting a new business.
Oh,
so
that's
it turned out I couldn't run one business, have children, and start a second all at the same time. That was a little more than I could handle, but I kind of stayed in the real estate. So I went to RIA meetings, and I kind of got started by becoming friends with people in the real estate meetings, and I started wholesaling because that's what most people do, or a lot of people. If you just go straight to a RIA meeting, especially if you don't have money to go flip a house right away, you try to learn how to wholesale. So I did some marketing, and I already understood marketing. So I did some marketing with the wholesaling, and then with some help of other wholesalers I had become friends with, I eventually ended up joint venturing, and that's how I got through some of my first deals. Ooh. And it was really on and off as we went through other stuff in our family, having more kids, some health issues, just challenges of building, growing a small, new family, young kids, all the stuff we went through.
Right.
So I kind of kept up with my main business, and over the last few years, I've done some wholesale deals, flipped a house with a partner, some owner finance deals, did a couple of lease options. So it's like I've done a smattering of different strategies.
Right.
As one of my friends once put me for the amount of money that you spend on marketing, you figure out a way to make money off of every phone call that comes in.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
A bit of a joke, but part of it's true. You initially go in looking for a house to flip, and you're like, well, I can wholesale that one. I could lease it. What is that strategy? Okay, I'll figure that out. And so I think I learned a little bit of everything just because I never had one large accumulative sum of either money or time to specialize. I would jump into something for 6 months, and then I would be out again, and then jump back in, and then be out. So there you go. That's kind of my history in real estate up until now.
Wow. Like you said earlier, you've built a successful business already, which is fantastic, especially past the 3-year mark. And then I like what you said earlier about, when you're doing marketing for real estate, when the lead comes in, you try to figure out whatever you can do with it. And I think a lot of people miss that point. Sometimes if it doesn't meet the model, and don't get me wrong, if like you're investing in single family houses and a self-storage deal shows up, you should pass that one on. But there are different ways you can execute or squeeze the juice out of a deal if you know different strategies, which you've done. And just let's transition into recently, in the past, maybe year or two, you've transitioned from one strategy to another. Share a little bit about that and why you transitioned.
Sure. It's a little bit was practical business, and some of it was personal and timing and just how things worked out. But I'd actually gotten to a point in my regular business where I had initially built up so much momentum, and then I kind of rode off of that momentum while I was learning real estate and having kids. And I got into a point where my income was starting to go down, but I was trying to transition into real estate, but I couldn't do it fast enough. So I actually a friend of mine in the real estate business, he's old enough to be my dad. He's been kind of mentoring me and was just helping me out. And he said, look, Sarah, if you need to make more money in the next 12 months, you should focus on your main business and set real estate aside, because you don't have as much learning curve with that. You still have learning curve with real estate. So set it aside and focus on your main business. And it was exactly what I did not want to hear. I wanted him to say, you can put your main business aside, jump into real estate. You can do it.
Right.
And that is exactly the opposite advice. And it was kind of like painful advice that I needed here, because I realized, okay, I've been neglecting some things, and I just have to do this one business right, and just get that focused on it, and it will build up some momentum again. And I'm done having kids, so I don't have to go back through that. So I can, I can get back focused again. And so, really amazingly, somehow, it's amazing how things happen. But I took his advice, and the very next week I was doing a gig and bumped into an old friend of mine who's a performer. He performs all over the country and sometimes in different countries in the world. And he had just gotten into a new type of performing that I was interested in. Ooh. And we just spent a whole hour, him giving me all kinds of tips and help. Wow. And then he had been mentoring somebody and they weren't able to do it anymore. And so I kind of became his right-hand man. Wow. And so this was about a year and a half ago. Just all to say, like, I completely dumped real estate and said, I'm going to narrow my focus to one thing. And then that door opened up. A few months later, I got a large corporate client for performances. And so this huge window of opportunity opened up once I singular focused. And so I just rolled with that. I felt like that was meant to be, and things were really growing and great. And then randomly last April, was on your email list. In fact, I told you this, I'd gotten off of every other coaching and all the other email lists, and I'm just going to set it aside, but I hung on to your email list. Yes.
I feel so special.
Yes. I was like,
take that, real estate gurus.
That's right. And so randomly last April, I thought I just responded to one of your auto emails and just said, hey, Nathan, I just wanted to let you know that I always thought highly of you and I appreciated your help in the past. And when I get back into real estate one day, I'm going to get in touch with you. And that's when you emailed back and said, hey, I've got this new strategy about land. And it was April, which was my busiest month of the year. And I love land. I had no idea that you could do a strategy with land. I thought that was fascinating. And I was really excited. But I wouldn't do it. I said, no, I'm keeping focused on this one thing until it gets to the right point. And so we emailed and talked back and forth for a few months. And then
it was a few months,
and then I had to pitch the idea to my husband. He's like, I'm sorry, I've never heard of this random guy. No, he's really trustworthy. I've been talking to him for 2 years yet.
Oh no, did it come across like who's this Nathan guy just randomly shows up in your life?
It was like, oh great, some new guru, whatever, Sarah. Like, no, really, I think this is a different deal. And that's my phone ringing. So I had to pitch that to him, and that took a while, and we finally actually came. Well, fortunately, he was really interested in land, so he thought that was cool. So the subject was more interesting to him than the other things that we'd done before too. So we in fact came to this agreement where he really didn't want me to do the coaching, but he could tell that I wasn't going to let it go. So we came to this agreement where he said, here's the deal. You can do this coaching with these guys, but if this doesn't work, you have to promise me never to do any coaching programs until you apply all the stuff you already know. He's like, it wasn't because he didn't like coaching. He's like, you already know stuff. You just need to focus. You've got a bunch of friends in the RIA group that are already successful and kind of retired. They're at this sort of help you out phase of their life. They would help you. You just focus on what you already have. You don't need something new. And so anyhow, so that was our deal.
I
said, that is so... This doesn't work with Mike and Nathan, I promise. I will just only ever apply the stuff I already have and not try to learn any new strategies.
That is so interesting you mentioned that, because I know your history in regards to real estate and the deals you've done. And I knew, and sometimes it's like after all these years and experience of working with thousands of people, sometimes you can see and hear things that people are doing, and it's just a matter of a few tweaks in their business that you can make a huge impact. And that's what I knew even when we had chatted multiple times about what was going on. And a lot of times, Sarah, it's so interesting that sometimes the spouse can also be a driving force. And I'm so glad like your husband is still supportive and still helping you along the way and is excited with you. It's so cool to have someone who is even excited in the real estate business along with you, because that can help motivate things as well. So that's really great. I'm happy for you. But I do want to touch on one more thing that's really important that you said, super powerful. Going back to the part when you said about your business, you called it a singular focus. And that's when your business started increasing. You started meeting new, maybe old friends, or new opportunities started presenting itself. And I think that's what a lot of people miss out on, especially even in real estate. Let me dive into a short example here. There are like hundreds of ways to skin this fish we call real estate investing. There's so many different ways, from lease options to wholesaling to short-term rentals, right? There's so many, I can go on and on. But the reality is when we get singular focused with one particular strategy and we dive really deep into that strategy, all of a sudden our mind starts changing and we start meeting new people that are in that same industry. We start seeing different opportunities in a different way. And guess what? Like your business, the income goes up. That's the most important thing. The income goes up. And that's exactly what your business benefited from by having that singular focus. Wanted to bring that up because I know a lot of people who are going to be watching your interview, and your story is going to be inspiring a lot of people and women, is that singular focus can have a really big impact where you do have to get away from all the noise. You have to pull yourself apart and maybe unsubscribe or stop listening to all these other people and just really get singular focus and say, all right, I'm going to dive in and get some results more than ever before. So thank you for sharing that, because those are some really valuable points. So when you made the transition into the lands, tell us about that experience and what happened for you.
Sure. So I started working with you and Mike in September, really. I guess we kind of decided we're going to do this in late August. So first coaching call officially with Mike was in September, which is my slow season. I mean, I intentionally waited until the slow season with my other business, so I knew I could, put a little more time into that. And it didn't take a lot of time, but it just enabled me to focus a little bit more. So I started in September and very part-time. The first thing we did was choose what markets to market to. So I watched your videos on how to pick a market. I selected about half a dozen and went through everything I could get on your video and prepped that before my call with Mike. So then when I had my call with Mike, I had about half a dozen different counties to discuss with him. So out of those half a dozen, we went over the pros and cons, and he immediately said, yeah, this one's great, or no, I would, I know something, just, I know people in the industry. I would set that aside for now. Let's go to something that I think this might be better. And so he just had a little bit more nuanced, guidance for that. Yeah. So we narrowed it down to like my top 3. And then I did my first mailer, and we had one county. It was on the beach. It was in a beach area, and it was a county I was most interested in. And he was a little bit like, I think it'll work, maybe not. I don't know. Like there seemed to be up and down results with the beach. It's a little bit more. I don't know what. It's not as bread and butter in some ways. I think. Yeah. Anyhow, so I dropped a mailer to this county on the beach, and I got 3 phone calls. It was a complete dud. And fortunately, I had experience. I didn't freak out about that. I was like, okay, there's some trial and error. Yeah. All right. Right. Yeah. Mike's like, okay, yeah, let's not do that again. Try this other county. This one's going to be really good. Yeah. So somewhere, I guess it's about October. And I was doing the cheap mailers too, where it takes them 3 weeks for the people to actually get them, because it would save money on the mailing. Right. So I was on a real tight budget. So I dropped a mailer to another county and I got 80 calls. I mean, it just was like the phone was blowing up like crazy. And the timing wasn't perfect. The phone just started blowing up right when I went out of town for Thanksgiving break.
Oh, wow.
And it was just going nuts. And so I didn't get back to any of those people right away. I got back into town and I just had tons of calls. So then, it was just crazy. What do I do and how do I get back to people? And so I had to learn the new steps for stuff. So, Mike just coached me through every step of it. And he walked me through some comps. We started figuring out how to do that. Then I started putting out the offers. So I just mailed out 80 offers. And then I went back and called the people that I had mailed. And now it's getting into the holidays, so, crazy time of year, sometimes getting responses, sometimes not. But then, I was really late getting back to people when I could say, oh, sorry, it was the holidays. And they're like, yeah, no big deal. We're all busy. Yeah. So I use that as my excuse for the fact that I'm brand new. I had no idea what I was doing. I had people to contact. So I put all those, and then, so after the offers, then I went back and started calling people, and that's when I got the contracts. I had one person that was obviously motivated to sell, and they kind of wanted to negotiate a little bit over the phone. They wanted a higher price, and it was higher than what I could do, and we ended up settling on something. So I got that contract, which I was excited about. Then I had somebody else who called me and said, hey, I got your offer and it was the holidays. I was really busy. But it's expired. Is it still good? Can you extend it? I really like to do this. I mean, it was so easy. There was no negotiating, no nothing. She just called me and said, I'm sorry, I'm late. Will you still buy my property for this really cheap price that you just offered me? And I was like, oh yeah, it's the holidays. It's all right. And got that under contract. And then the other two was just a few email exchanges. I never even was on the phone with them. Wow. Wrapped the whole thing up by email. So I got 4 contracts out of that. Okay. And then one of them finally I sold about 2 weeks ago, and the second one just closed yesterday. So I have closed 2, and I have 2 that I'm still out there marketing. So that's where I am. So started in September, and now it's March. There we go.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's amazing. And one thing that I love what you said earlier is that you have an excitement for land, but you didn't know the opportunities that you could do with it. And so, tell me, did you have any like doubts or uncertainty during that process? I mean, I know you have real estate experience already before, but were there any doubts about maybe possibly how this could work for you in regards to making the switch?
Yes, absolutely. I was nervous the whole time, really nervous. And so I would bounce back and forth from being nervous, like, if this doesn't work, what's going to happen? This is my dream and I'm not going to be able to make it, to like chill out. Right. You've been here before, you know better, just chill out. And then I would get on a call with Mike, and that would help me tremendously. I could hear the confidence in his voice. I could hear that he knew what he was talking about, and that he knew people, that it just sounded real every time I talked to him. And so that helped a lot to get through that unknown period. You're kind of walking in the fog for a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really don't know what's out there. I'm just putting one foot in front of the other and telling him, just doing what he tells me to do. Yeah. So yes, I definitely went back and forth a lot, from being really nervous and then just calming myself back down again, and just putting one foot in front of the other and having some kind of faith that this was all supposed to happen here and I'm doing the right thing, and that's that. Right.
That's an important part you bring up, though, is, you were willing, I'm going to use the illustration of running, right? You were willing to run, even though, like, you were running and asking questions at the same time, right? You said, I want to run this race. I'm going to run this race. And like you said, you had that support, that someone there to say, hey, okay, while you're running, I'm going to say, go this way, do this, go that. Yeah. And I think a lot of people sometimes, yes, they may be willing to run, but they're not sure how far. You know, they want to know, like, okay, well, how far is it, right? How far do I have to run? And those are the people who give up first, right? They're like, well, I want to run, but how far?
Yeah.
Right? Those
And
people
problem
tend
is
to
you
give
never
up
know.
first.
You
Right, exactly.
don't know exactly how far.
Yeah, you just want to keep running towards your dreams. I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You just keep running towards your dreams. And one thing that I always like to use as an illustration is that, you know, when you're running this race of real estate investing, you're running this race for your dreams, financial goals, and building more cash flow into your life, there's going to be those moments of uncertainty. There's going to be those moments of doubt. Am I doing this correct? Am I doing this right? And sometimes, like, no YouTube video or, you know, any networking event can satisfy that need for direction. And that's why it's so important to have a coach in your life, because it's someone who is, especially a coach who's been there, done that, has real results, because it gets right to the point and saying, yeah, you know what, don't do this. And it reminds me, and I would like to know more about, I have a question about your beach nailer. Was that more on you, or was that more like, how did that come about? Because that makes a little difference there. Was that more like your heart's desire there at that moment?